It's a very warm welcome back to the best audience in the world. Welcome back Sunday evening, and I'm joined by three special guests tonight. I've gone for beauty, I've gone for passion, I've gone for intelligence. I went for everything. Unfortunately, none of those were available. So that's a warm welcome back to Richard. Evening, Richard.
Good, Paul. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. It's Danny, of course, in Spain. And evening, Danny, and we have a very special guest tonight. Always an absolute pleasure and an honour. One of the world of politics, men amongst men, Howard Cox. Good evening, Howard.
Good evening. Lovely to be here. Meet the other again. All the good-looking ones too.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Howard, listen, mate. As the older man on the panel, you are always welcome back on this show any day of the week.
Thank you.
You can't get away with that one, Paul. You can't get away with that one.
I know Howard's a good lad. He doesn't mind it. All right, welcome back, everyone. Good evening. Now, unfortunately, someone has just informed me that we're clashing with our dear friend Toozy tonight. Sorry, Mayor. I usually go live at 9, but I need an early night tonight, so I went live an hour earlier. Goldtooth Jacko's in the chat. Evening, mate. How you doing? Right, nice to see you. Richard's lost a little bit of weight, hasn't he? I think he probably has.
He's just had a shave.
Is that what it is? Terry's a new member. Thank you very much, Terry. Guys, get me up to 278,000 subscribers tonight. I need about another dozen. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Right, let's get into it, guys, because we have got a lot to get through tonight, and we are going to start. We are going to start with what can I call him? The embarrassment of the week, I think. It has to be the embarrassment of the week. It is this story here, headlined in the Mail on Sunday, but it's gone viral. Come out, it's the Thought Police. When this delightful detective knocked on the lady's door, let's have a little read of what it said. It said, a chilling clampdown of free speech. 2 police officers pay a visit to a grandmother simply for criticising Labour politicians on Facebook. Detectives were last night accused of acting like East Germany's feared Stasi secret police for quizzing Helen Jones over her calls for the resignation of local councillors embroiled in the WhatsApp scandal exposed by the Mail on Sunday. I mean, wow. Police conceded that the 54-year-old grandmother had committed no crime. Yet Mrs. Jones says she's been effectively silenced by the officers, as she was intimidated by them calling at her door and is too terrified to post on social media again. I mean, let's start. We'll go from the top to the bottom. Richard, first impressions on this unbelievable story. That's not bad.
That guy, he looked like he's hardly intimidating. He's not really the Stasi, is he? He's not like sort of hair flick. I mean, he comes to your door and you look at the state of him. I would just really be checking his warrant card to make sure he wasn't pulling my chain. I mean, there's just something not right with that fella. But he must be the special internet intelligent. He's just a geek that sits behind his computer all day, every day. And he's seen this, and he's got the armed response guys out. They've surrounded the house, and he's got the door like that. Oh, you've been putting nasty stuff on Facebook. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Rich, I think Paul actually meant, what do you think about the subject rather than the actual bloke?
I can't get past him. I honestly can't get past that copper. He's not a serious police officer. You expect some 6'6" guy kicking the door and not flipping Joe 90.
Richard, there, although it's comical in a way, I actually, to be honest with you, I see a very serious side to this. I mean, for me, this is a new level. It's one thing jailing grandparents for shouting at the police on the street, but now they're getting visits for criticising a political party. I mean, Howard, this is North Korea stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely right. I mean, this woman, I'm sure she did, is what thousands of us want that to happen. Get rid of these stupid councillors who are so bloody infantile to have private WhatsApp chat and say they wanted the pensioners to die or something like that in a WhatsApp group. I mean, it's so serious, but it hides a bigger problem because they criticise Labour councillors. And I've mentioned this to people before. I mean, had this been Conservative councillors or other parties, there are other parties if we can choose from, even though we don't want to. The point is, it wouldn't have happened. The police are being dictated to from number 10.
Yeah, I said to you before the show started, when you said that, I said, well, if it was a reform person, they'd end up on the if someone was criticising reform, they'd end up on the BBC.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And honestly, we may be jesting about it, but it's so serious. It's getting worse by the day.
Do you know what? I've got a good idea. Why don't you put a post on your Facebook if you've got a problem? Rather than phoning 999 now, say, I don't know, you get a house burglary or something else, put a post on your Facebook. They then immediately send the police around because you get a better response by posting on Facebook than you do if you get a burglary now.
That's a very, very
There's
good
a quick
point.
way of getting police if you need them quick.
That's a very good point. I mean,
do you know what? I think the serious point is, this. When you think about what happened during the riots, you think about the guys at Downing Street, and there was the train driver. His wife's disabled. He's 61 years old. He's retired. He's singing a song about Allah that, okay, might have been unpalatable, but the bottom line is, there's no blasphemy law in the UK. That guy got 21 months in prison for singing a song about a deity, right? Now, to me, that is Orwellian. And obviously this lady, she's almost certainly not going to go to prison. But the reality is there are people in prison under Islamic blasphemy law in the UK right now, because that guy that sang that song, that's why he's in prison. If he'd have sung that about Buddha, or
Jesus.
Krishna or whoever,
or even the
Jesus,
king, or even the king.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been in prison. So so all of this is feeding into this totalitarian, Orwellian, Stalinist state that we're morphing into, and this, the sooner we get rid of this lot out of power,
Well, then the more headlines, Rich, the more headlines that come out is scaring more people, which will silence more people, which is their agenda. We know.
I'm not sure it will, Danny. I'm not sure it will. I'm not.
Danny,
I think.
Danny, I tell you what I think the danger is here, boys. Right? I think the more they do this, the more you actually radicalise people. That's what I feel. I think you push people who are normally very, very moderate. You push them to the point where they become
unlicensed boxing, isn't it? It's unlicensed boxing.
It almost is. I mean, the problem with the left is their total inability and their willingness to even engage in any kind of debate or listen to any other opinion other than their own.
Yeah.
And the problem is now is that people are getting so sick of it that people who are, I mean, take Howard for an example. I mean, a year ago, Howard is 6 weeks ago, Howard's a mainstream politician. Because he's dared to talk about Tommy, he's now been pushed to the periphery.
And he ends up on here.
And he
Sorry.
Cheers, Danny.
Sorry, mate.
Getting twice as many views as Sky News.
Yeah. True, absolutely right. And, but Paul, you're dead right about this situation. I mean, I know so many reform people, grassroots people, who have been thrown out. They've been chucked out. Chairmen have been chucked out right across the country because their face don't fit. I mean, Zia Youssef, the new chairman, has gone through absolutely like a dose of Epsom salts to get rid of people completely he doesn't like. And Nigel seems to be sanctioning it. Nigel is a friend. I've had a few beers with him over the years. 10 years we've worked together. Even on my campaign leaflet when I was down in Dover, front page picture of me. You can trust Howard. I've worked with him for years. And then we get this situation where one policy I disagree with, we should actually embrace Tommy and give him credit that he deserves. I'm threatened with expulsion. So I had no choice but to leave. And what's worse about it, we're talking about this now, it's one religion or one, whatever it is, we're talking about Islam. And I've been on a number of podcasts in the last, 4 or 5 weeks talking about this. And the question is simply this, what do I think? We talk about Islamophobia and all these sorts of things. But this week, a week just gone by, Starmer entertained Muslim businessmen. He had them right across the table, the whole of them in the cabinet office, in the cabinet room, sitting there. Where were the Jewish ones? Where were the Sikh ones? Why is it just Muslim businessman. This
Well, I
is
think that's Howard. I think the answer to that is fairly simple: 4 million votes.
yes. Well, exactly. You're
And a lot of
right.
money. I mean, the more worrying thing is that Nigel has been allegedly entertaining Muslim businessmen as well at private meetings. So, you know, the reality of the situation is it's not just the Conservative, not just the Labour Party, the Conservative Party are doing it, the Lib Dems are doing it, the Greens are in it up to the next, and now Reform is doing exactly the same thing. And I think it's very worrying, because I think we've got to really ask ourselves a question. Do we want to be an Islamic State in 15 years' time? I think it's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm being very conservative on that.
Very conservative.
It could be 8 or 10 years if we don't see a massive sea change. And you know,
Let's let me just for a minute, boys. Let me go back to this particular police officer. Now, I'm not going to dig this guy out, because like he's been sent round there on his orders, right? And you know, he's probably an husband and a dad and all that. But
I don't think so.
I heard that, Richard. I'm sure everyone else did as well. Let's be fair. I mean, I wonder how this guy's feeling tonight, and I wonder how his family feels. I mean, is this what he signed up for?
No, he's been sent round by the powers that be, hasn't he? It's not down to him. He's had to do what he's been told.
But I have a funny feeling it is what he signed up for, Paul.
I mean, but Danny, you know, this is what I've often said. I mean, look, I try every day of my life. I try to retain respect for our police services, right, and for individual police officers. I try so hard because I want to support them so badly. But when they perform like this, I mean, where is there an argument?
It's not them, though, Paul. It's not them, is it? They're being
Danny,
told.
Danny, I agree. But if I told you to go outside your window now and jump off the first floor, would you do it?
Well, I'm on the ground floor.
Well,
but listen, right? No, I'm serious. You can't. At the end of the day, it's a direct order, isn't it? If they're told to do something, they've got to act on what they're being told to do.
I'd throw a sickie. I couldn't do it.
Well, I think what you're bringing up there, Paul, is a very, very valid argument, because isn't that what the concentration camp guard said? We're following orders. If your orders are going totally against the democratic process, which when you're policing those sort of Facebook posts, and I'm making light of the way the guy looks because I think it's funny, and it kind of it makes the whole thing look foolish. But I understand it's a very serious thing, and if you're being given orders to go and execute orders that are absolutely ridiculous, then you end up looking ridiculous, not just because you do look ridiculous, but because it's absolutely ridiculous to do that. And this is the problem, that people in these organizations, they're terrified of speaking up to the power in that organization. And I've seen it when I've been doing the police liaison, because obviously I don't care what rank they are. It doesn't matter to me whether they're a chief superintendent or whatever that they are. If they're doing something wrong, I'll say it. And you can see the sort of the lower ranking officers kind of tee-heeing into their hands. But you know, the reality is that those senior officers that have all been radicalized by Common Purpose and by the left and by the woke indoctrination, they are the ones that are controlling the minions down below them. And like you say, Danny, they're terrified to disobey those orders. I wouldn't last 2 minutes in the police.
No,
you know what? I wonder if they agreed with what they were doing. Like, we're never going to know, are we? But I wonder if when they're standing there ringing that ring doorbell and being recorded, obviously, I wonder if they agreed with what they were asked to do.
Well, here's a question for you, Howard. I'll ask you this one. Look, I mean, it says here that police conceded that the 54-year-old had committed no crime. I would suggest that if any crime had been committed there, it was one of harassment, alarm and distress to the 54-year-old grandmother.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. It's incredible. The real bad thing about all of this, there are departments sitting there looking at computers and checking up on what we're putting out. They're not out on the street catching criminals. This is the thing that's happened. When I was standing for London Mayor last year, I actually spoke to loads of grassroots on the when I could find a policeman on the street. Yeah. But I actually spoke to the buggers, and every single one of them wants to catch criminals, wants to be a policeman. Every single, without failure, there was a little rookie guy I met. He'd only been just come out of the college, I think 6 months. And he said most of his days spent actually on administration. They've got these wonderful super iPads now, which they're just punching boxes. I walk down this street, that street, etc. And he kept saying how disrespected the London Mayor is, and also the Chief Commissioner, Mark Rowley. They're saying they are the kings of woke. And they are destroying life in London. London, I think I've said this many times before on here, maybe, is that, what's happening in London is not just the security and all that sort of thing. The economy is being destroyed. Those are the sorts of things that are going on. Not, I could go on about congestion charging, ULEZs and parking charges and all the other things, potholes. I'm going forever about that's my core subject. But the fact is, the police are not being allowed to do what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. Talking about mayoral candidates for London, Howard. Ant Middleton is going to be standing for mayor in London. I suppose the question I got for you guys, and again, I'll go to you first, Howard, because obviously a former mayoral candidate, yourself, you'll be best placed to comment on this. Two questions I've got is, what do you think of Ant Middleton as a potential mayor of London? That's the first question. The second question is, are there enough Londoners left in London to vote him in?
I'll take the second one first, and I can tell you this. Well, what is it? I think it's something in the region that's 42% originated from London. That means there's 58% that are from ethnic origin or in different areas. I don't know this guy that well. All I know is that on October the 7th, 2023, and that's got a very important date for all of us. That's when Israel was invaded by Hamas. But also it was a day of a conference for reform in London where we had about 1,000 people. And I gave the opening speech as the mayoral candidate. And I think I met the guy. I didn't know much about him. But there's a problem with reform at the moment. They're sort of chasing billionaires and celebrities. They seem to be wanting to go that route rather than looking after the grassroots people. And that's what I'm getting very angry about, and so a lot of other people. He's probably going to be a good guy. He's an SAS man. I don't know if he's politically what he's like, but he's going to be a powerful presence. And
I'd vote for him. I'd vote for him.
Well, with all the work that I did and put it out there, he's got a good chance of getting on board. Yeah.
No disrespect. I mean, look, I'd vote for Mickey Mouse over who we've got.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Danny, anyone that's put the uniform on.
Yeah, absolutely. He'd have my vote for sure.
I'd take a goldfish over Sadiq Khan, wouldn't you, Richard? No.
Listen, I think Ant Middleton's he's a decent lad, and again, he's a character. He's like every soldier. He's got a bit of baggage, as we probably all did, through doing a few years in the military. And listen, he's been there, done it. He's a special forces soldier, tier 1 operator. So I mean, he's done stuff that none of the rest of us done. Even people that are in the army have not done what he's done. So he's very experienced. He's very intelligent. He's positive. I like him. I like Ant Middleton a lot. I really do. Again, but I think what Howard's saying about reform, and I mean, I think me and Howard will be lockstep in this, because there's such a worrying amount of stuff coming out about reform, about lack of depth in policy. It's almost like they've got a campaign that's 100 miles wide and an inch deep. There's no depth there. And when we try to drill down on things like the net zero migration, we get kind of evasive answers. When I say, well, okay, so you're losing a couple of millionaires called Jeremy and Julian, and you're getting a goat herder called Abdul coming in and his wife and 16 kids, and they don't really have an answer for that, because to me that's what net zero migration is. And so I think reform have a really big problem with policy and depth of policy. Big, from what I can tell, there is, and it's not because he's a Muslim. From what I can hear, there's massive problems with Zia Yusuf. Okay, and obviously, I suppose it's hearsay is one thing. Whether that's true or not is a different story. So I think Ant Middleton would be a great candidate for London Mayor. I'd love to see him win it. I'd love to see him win it for reform. Why not? Yeah.
I'm gonna stick up for reform a bit, because we've got to balance this out a little bit. And you guys know that I have the same similar concerns. For me, I've got to be honest. They still represent our best chance. They'll be 100%. Getting my vote. and that's the way it is for me. I mean, look, I care about the country more than I care about personalities. Howard, look, you know, you have been so much closer to this than we have. What Richard's just mentioned there, do you share those fears, or can you allay those fears a little bit for us? Is Nigel having to play the long game and just having to be Mr. Sensible to try and get that middle ground vote? We spoke about this the other night, didn't we?
Yeah.
Do you think he is?
Well, I am worried the way Nigel's doing what he's doing. He's moving a bit more centralist rather than we need a centre-right person there.
Yeah.
But my hope is when you've got Lee Anderson and Rupert Lowe, those two guys are superb. Rupert Lowe is outstanding, and I'm going to say I reckon he should be leader of the party. And I'm not alone with that. There's thousands of people telling me the same thing. Nigel is still the consummate professional, great communicator, and he is popular. But
here's the thing. Sorry, Howard, cutting across you there. Here's the thing, right? I mean, again, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm going to defend Nigel and Reform here and say, look, is it possible that this is their plan? Look, Nigel is the most well-known politician in the country.
Yep.
He's got the support of your average granny and grandma at number 55 and at number 27. But they wouldn't know Rupert Lowe if he came up and kissed one of their babies, right? So is it, well, let's get Nigel in the number 10, and then Rupert can take over, and happy days.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be brutal. I accept what you're saying, but there's 4 years to the election. I mean, unfortunately, we've got scared Labour people, MPs, who will not vote. The only way you can get rid of them is a vote of no confidence. And there's not one MP who's going to vote, you know, turkeys for Christmas. They're not going to do that. So we've got to live with the fact that it's going to be 2029. Could be a bit earlier, maybe 28. But the fact, fundamentally, Nigel's got a long time to actually build this relationship. But Rupert Lowe will be, people get to know. You think about it, there are 5 MPs, probably the 4 MPs of them. I mean, James McMurdoch, you don't hear much about him. He was a paper candidate and he was lucky to get in. He got in by about 25 votes, I think, which is good luck to him. Well done. But
apparently he's a good lad. Apparently he's a very nice lad, apparently.
Well, yeah, absolutely. He is. He's a good bloke. I've met him a few times, but, you know, if you'd stood there, Paul, you would have won. And if I'd stood there, you would have won. That's the point. Whereas people like Lee Anderson, who actually talks the talk, there's no doubt about it. He stands up for principles. I mean, he's moved from Labour to Conservative to Reform. We know that. And he really has a go at Sadiq Khan in London. I love that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Rupert Lowe also stands up and supports. Is strong support, but he defends Tommy, and for him to do that. So to answer your question, this is long game with Nigel. I was on a show the other day. In fact, it's coming out this week with Liam Tuff's thing later this week, and I make the point that I think Nigel should come out and apologise for what he said about Tommy, particularly about his violence against women and stuff. And which is, we all know is a total lie.
Untrue,
if he did that, and he said sorry for, and Richard comes out and says sorry for calling that lot. If we got rid of that, I tell you what, there'd be they're a shoe-in for government.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Danny. Here's the thing, right? I agree with everything that Howard said there, but here's the problem. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if any of you guys saw it, but I was watching Farage being interviewed by Sky earlier on, Sky News, right? And boy, did they try to get their gotcha moment with him talking about Putin. Did you see it, Howard?
No, I didn't, but I heard about it, yeah.
Yeah, talking about Putin and Ukraine, and they're looking for that gotcha moment where they can say, told you so, Farage is a Putin supporter. He never said that at all. You have to listen to what the man's saying. So this is the point, Danny, is that, like, for me, I would love to see Nigel come out and be a bit more radical, if you like, step a bit closer, step over to the right a little bit. Instead of taking a step to the left, take a step to the right. But unfortunately, when we look at the election results coming through now in Germany, which are not looking as good for the AfD as we'd all perhaps hope for, is that a lesson for us there? Is that, I mean, Nigel will perhaps turn around and say, look, boys, Lee, I know what I'm doing here. You know, if I take that step over to the right and, you know, start talking a little bit more like the AfD, like a bit more like Rupert, is that going to be too much for the middle ground that I believe will win the election?
they say general elections are won on the centre ground.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
I think he knows what he's doing. I think Nigel does know what he's doing.
He does.
You know, he's done very well. He was Mr. Brexit, wasn't he, originally? And I believe he might, as you said earlier, Paul, that weren't a bad shout, you know, win the election and then bring in Rupert to take over. That could
I would have a, you know, having watched Nigel for many, many years. I mean, I joined UKIP in 2018 when Gerard Batten became leader, and I saw the way Nigel operated then. I don't think for a minute if Nigel becomes Prime Minister in 4 years' time that he's going to just go, there you go, Rupert, there's the keys, I'll let you have a go.
Yeah,
I don't believe that for a second. Right? I think that's just that's la thinking. And I think the AFD does have some problems with radicalisation. There are some proper ethno-nats within the AFD. So the AFD is not like Reform or even UKIP, which is, you know, dead against racism in any way, shape, or form. You know, it would be like a sort of amalgamation between, I suppose, maybe Reform and something like the BNP. That would be really what the AFD is. It's not as squeaky clean as, and of course the Germans are very, very liberal and lefty anyway. So, you know, it's just in their DNA. And you know, so I think Nigel could be more bold. And I think the reality is, to me, that's why I think Ben Habib's so important in what Ben's doing with the GB PAC thing. I think that's why right-wing Tory MPs are so important. That's why Pledge and UKIP are so important, because what that does, it constantly tugs at Nigel and all the people in leadership of Reform, saying, we're watching you, and we're not going to just go, it's okay. You can go into this election with very thin policies. You can go into this election not caring about demographics and deportations, which are needed, and we're just going to sit back and say that's okay. They need to be. I think they need their feet held to the fire all the time. And the reality is, the only party that has a chance on our side, has a chance of winning the next election, is Reform. Everybody knows that. But what we've got to try and do is find a way of dragging them, kicking and screaming, over to what I believe is the vast majority of British peoples, with, according to Matt Goodwin, about 70% of people agree with the policies that we want. And that's what we need to reform. And the other thing is that we're forgetting is, if we can get people really energized, like Howard was just saying there about getting the sort of, it was either Howard or you, Paul, you know, getting Nigel to move on the Tommy thing, then all those Tommy supporters, working class people, will in the right sense of the word, radicalise their friends and neighbours to register. People that never vote, register to vote, get stuck into the political process. And if the whole Trump thing was, you've got to make it too big to rig. So yes, he's got to have a way of appealing to the centre ground, but at the same time, he's got to find a way of appealing to that lot, which is us, and getting.
Yeah, but Richard, I think I think Nigel on Tommy got it wrong right from the very start, and I'll tell you why. Before I do that, let me just read out one or two of these. Darren's a new member. Thank you, Darren. Terry Roof is a new member. Yorkshire Tea. I thank God for you, lads. That's lovely. Thank you very much. AJ Audits. Hi, guys. Good to see the Three Stooges back together. Sean's a new member as well. And Divergent Party says, if we fall, where are we all moving to? Danny's. He's got enough room in his gaff.
Yeah, I've got loads of room out the back. Yes,
Amanda Richardson. Yeah, Essex Police won't get Jodie Marsh. # Fox Audits. Not sure what that one means. I'll have to have a look at that. Graham Solaris.
I don't a little bit lately.
Yeah, I don't know what that story is. Graham Solaris. I don't know about Joe 90. Richard, he looks more like a Kevin 2 and 3/8. Cy Harris, thank you, Cy. Evening all, seeing your four faces on the telly. I thought I'd tuned in to Crime Watch. Come on,
Baywatch.
Baywatch, I was going to say, yeah, Baywatch. Thank you very much, Susan. Really appreciate that. Look, I've got a message here from a serving police officer, and I can verify that because I know who it is. He says, Paul, can you please tell Richard I'll be round first thing in the morning?
Don't say things like that, Paul.
This is a genuine message from a serving police officer. He said, Paul, That copper is clearly at the end of his career, and you have no idea what he's done in his career. He will have seen things I've seen that no normal people would have done. He would have gone to fatal car crashes, cop deaths, done CPR on people, and been assaulted. It's wrong to single him out. He would be following orders. It doesn't make it right, but this guy deserves respect. And I think to be fair, I did say that. I don't want to single him out as an individual, but I thought I'd read it out because I always like to be fair and put both sides of the story. And there is some element in truth to that. The caveat to it is I still say I couldn't do that job. And I couldn't do the other jobs that the guy mentions either, by the way. Going back to why I think Nigel's got this wrong with Tommy. Going back to why I think Nigel's got this wrong with Tommy right from the very start, right? Because I think there is a case to say, I think to be fair, if he was to come out and openly support and back Tommy and invite him into reform, etc., I don't necessarily think that would do reform any favours.
Look, the thing is,
Paul, he has come round a little, hasn't he?
Yeah, but the point is, he pissed off everyone by saying what he said. He would have pissed off a lot of people by backing him. What he should have done was done what he did the other day. Just say, well, look, I'm not his biggest fan, but he's not being tricked. Just be fair. Just be sensible. Use a bit of common sense.
Say what Rupert Lowe says.
Exactly.
It's and what Ben's been doing as well. It's exactly right. I mean, the reality is, it was a massive own goal that was totally unnecessary, and that's the problem. That's
massive own goal.
He's not understanding the popularity of Tommy in the country. I mean, everybody.
Is that his fault, Richard? Is that his fault?
Yes, of course it's his fault.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
he's the leader of a political party.
Yeah, but Richard, what I'm saying is, the question's a bit wider than that. Is that his fault, or is it the people around him that haven't given him the right advice?
Paul, at the end of the day, the buck stops with him. Do you think Trump would make an error like that? No. JD Vance, no. And this is
I agree. I'm playing devil's advocate. I agree.
No, I know. And this is where we've got to say, the other thing is Tommy doesn't want to join reform. All he wanted from Nigel was a bit of respect and basically Nigel having his back while he's in prison. And, the reality is none of them have asked a question at question time about Tommy, and there's plenty of MPs, independent unionists, independent, MPs that could be asking those questions. And there's those 5 reform MPs, and none of them said, why is this man being treated like he is in prison?
That's because there's no spying in Parliament, Richard. That's why.
And those independents, most of them are Muslim independents.
Yeah.
So they won't be Tommy fans, will they?
No.
Well, do you know what? I'll tell you something. This is where I think they missed a trick, actually. If they wanted to earn a bit of respect, wouldn't it be nice to see one of those Muslim MPs stand up and say, look, you know what? I'm not his biggest fan, but this man is not being treated properly. Because I tell you something now, I would do that if I was a member of Parliament and there was a Muslim that was being treated hugely unfairly, like Tommy is, for what he has done. I would stand up and I would defend them. But they won't. They're human beings.
Well, Paul, do you know what? That happened to me. Not that I was in Parliament, but I was a manager in a business a few years ago, and obviously the boss knew my views on radical Islam and so on and so forth. And there was a Muslim guy in the office, and basically there was a disciplinary taking place. And my boss thought, this will be easy. This will be a shoo, and we'll put Richard on this, and Richard will flip and get him down the road. When I heard the case, I went, no, hold on a minute. This guy's the one that's been discriminated against, not the other way around. Turned the tables on the thing. And, because it doesn't matter what I think about radical Islam. This guy was a human being who's been treated badly in a company that I work for. And I wasn't going to let that happen. It didn't do my career much good, I can tell you. But the reality is...
the principle.
It's the principle, and that's the reality.
Paul O'Keefe, thank you, Paul. Greetings from MAGA in USA. Reform UK are the best of a bad lot. Reform seems to be going for quantity over quality. No point in having 200,000 members if you don't educate and mobilise them. Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much, Paul. Well, they lost a bit of quality with the man sitting underneath me there. Alan, no, I mean it. Alan, thank you very much. I'll tell you what, Howard, I know that you've done a podcast that I'm really, really looking forward to with someone that I class as a very, very dear friend. That is the one and only Liam Tufts, the Magnificent Dozen podcast. How did you find Liam?
Well, he's quite a character, isn't he? Yeah. I mean, well, obviously, I met him obviously at the Tommy rally on the February the 4th. And he was actually master of ceremonies, wasn't he? He was actually injured, and he introduced me, and I've got to know him, and huge respect. He's a good guy, and he's been nothing but kind to me. We had about, I think, well over 60 minutes talking face to face, mic to mic, and he asked me some very direct questions. I hope I've answered them honestly. I think he seems to have liked. I think it comes out on Thursday, but I don't hold back. And your point is valid about, and that American guy is saying about reform is best of the bad lot, because that is my point about all of this. I wouldn't be standing in politics if the Tories haven't basically buggered it up. And I knew Labour would be bad news. I didn't realise it'd be this bad. But the combination of those two parties, any party is going to do better coming along. And so that's what worries me, is that Nigel, he's going to be Prime Minister one day. I think it's going to happen. But the thing I worry about is the people sitting around them, the bad advisors. I know some of those people in headquarters. And it's funny, isn't it? You know, I stood last for mayor in May last year. Then I stood for Dover and Deal and came second down in the July election. And since that day, not one person from headquarters has spoken to me.
Yeah, it's not good, is it?
Well, it's disrespectful. You could have easily said, thanks, Howard. You're too old now. You're an old git now. We love what you've done. Thank you very much. Shake the hand. And I would have accepted that. But no, not one thing. And that's what I'm worried about, what's happening right across the country. I'm having lunch with Ben Habib tomorrow, and he's a dear friend of mine, and we're going to chew the cud on all of this. Yeah.
Well, Ben, we love Ben. I mean, Corinne, thank you. Love you guys. Fabulous four. Thank you. Cheers, Margaret. Really appreciate that. Ben has got a bit of an announcement coming up in the next few days that I hope to exclusively reveal. I think you know what it is, Howard. Looking forward to that one, and a big thanks to Ben ahead of that announcement. Look, we still got so much to get through, guys. We've got 4,000 people watching, and that's whilst we're competing with Maya. Sorry, Maya, I forgot. I didn't mean to rebel stream over you. Alan, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, my friend. Look, the next one that I want to just briefly touch on is this. Apple removes cloud encryption feature from UK after backdoor order.
Time to ditch the Apple now, mate.
What do we make of that? Products. Danny, what do you think of that?
Disgraceful. It's disgraceful, Paul. I mean, look, we've lost all of our... I mean, since Labour have come in, look what the damage they're doing. This is an absolute infringement on our privacy. I've got nothing to hide. They can look at my phone all day long. It wouldn't make no difference to me. And I'm not in the UK. It's only in the UK. They can't do it in Spain.
And Danny, that's the point, isn't it? It's the UK. Yeah. Labour have put this on. Why have Apple acquiesced and said, "Okay, roll over," and said, "All right, we'll do that"? But no,
that's a good point. It's a good point, Howard. Why have they?
No idea.
Well, there must have been some kind of threat made, mustn't there?
Well, I think, or a promise of something to do with what they're going to do, something to do with some IT and AI stuff in the UK. They're going to give it to Apple. I've no idea. I was shocked by this because this is military grade encryption, the best possible in the world. You know, they're trying to. I can understand they want to get into a phone of a drug dealer. You know, they catch something, they want to find out what he's going to do. But there are other ways of doing it. All they've got to do is get a professional hacker. They can do it.
Richard?
Well, I mean, there was the issue with the was it San Antonio? One of the terrorist attacks in the US where there was I think it was a husband and wife jihadist team went on a rampage and killed a whole lot of people, and they couldn't get into the phone. The feds or the Homeland Security couldn't get into the phone because it was an iPhone. And I'm not sure how that was resolved in the States, but it caused a massive problem. So you see. Part of me says, and obviously I don't like any, as you know what I'm like with civil liberties and freedom of speech. I don't like anyone snooping in our on our phones or anything like that. But part of me says, if there's a genuine terrorist threat and this goes some way to mitigate that, well, like Danny said, we've nothing to hide in our phones. We don't particularly want people snooping around what we're chatting about. But at the same time, if it could prevent a terrorist attack, because I think the other thing that we're not factoring into all this is, I think I shared it with you guys.
But Richard, just interrupting, is that the reason?
I don't know.
To prevent terrorism, because I don't believe it is. I think it's more.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, Danny. That's probably what they're given as the reason.
That's exactly
what. When I spoke to my friend that teaches intelligence at Sandhurst, he was very clear. He said since October the 7th, 2023, the radicalisation in the United Kingdom has gone absolutely through the roof.
Yeah.
To an extent that they can't even put a number on how many people that they need to watch. All they can do is watch the most radicalized extreme elements. So
what do they do to combat that, Rich? What do they do?
Well, electronic surveillance.
Bring them in.
Well, here's the thing. I kind of go along with Richard to some degree to that one. I actually have no problem with them trying to root out terrorists. No problem at all. And they've done
they've been doing a very good job, Paul, as well. The security services and MI5 and the police anti-terror branch have been doing an absolutely fantastic job. Now, obviously, we know terrorist attacks will get through. Like Ruda Bakana got through. There will be ones get through, but the amount of jihadist plots that have been foiled since 2017 is incredible.
They've done an incredible job.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I have no problem with them using that to crack paedophile gangs and terrorists and drug dealing gangs, if that's what it's used for. If they're being used to hack 54-year-old granny's phones because she's been moaning about a Labour councillor, if that's what it's going to get used for, then I have a big problem with it.
You're absolutely right. The thing is, you made the point, but the thing, let's go back to what Danny's point is, in fact, it's only in the UK. Are there no drug gangs and rape gangs and all the other things going on in other countries? Why is Starmer's regime being able to convince probably one of the largest tech companies in the world to roll over?
Yeah, exactly that.
Very good point. Very good point.
And that's where you need transparency and people that are in positions of power in the security service need to come out and say, actually, no, we did request this, and these are the reasons that we requested this, and give specific reasons why if that's the case, if it has come from the security services, because the thing is, we don't know. All we know is the headlines. So we need to, if we can dig into the background of it, because look, at the end of the day, if you get arrested by the anti-terrorist police, like Tommy did, and you don't give your PIN number straight away, you're charged with a terrorism offence. So the reality
Richard,
is
on that one quickly, they gave his phone back within a few hours.
Yeah. So
they can't be too concerned what was on that phone.
That was just them doing it to charge him with terrorism. That was purely a political decision, because everyone knows Tommy's not a terrorist. I mean, it was a completely unjust arrest. It was an absolute farce.
Guys, we've got to move on because we've still got quite a few bits to get through. I mean, we're flying through tonight. If you haven't given us an upvote, please do that. It would really help with the show. A couple of things I want to just run past everyone. First of all, I did a video earlier about football supporters and how they've been winding me up lately. Bloody arguing amongst themselves and travelling all around the country when they can't be bothered to come and support their country when we need them. Just a little note, that wasn't aimed at the football lads that come to the demos on a regular basis. We all know that, you lads are the salt of the earth. You've travelled all around the country supporting the movement. It was aimed at the Prawn Sandwich Brigade, who will travel from Cornwall to bloody Carlisle to watch a football match, but won't go down the road when we've got an event in London because they can't be bothered. That's the ones I was having a moment about. Our dear friend Alan, that a lot of people know from the show, is not very well. He's not doing too good. I know he's watching the show tonight. Alan, we're with you, brother. God bless you, and get yourself back into action.
Get well on.
And the other one is, this came up earlier on. Now, Tommy's team has messaged us directly earlier on to tell us that this protest is not an official protest, and please do not attend it. This is not helpful to Tommy's legal challenge.
Could cause him problems, couldn't it?
This is not an official event. There will be no stewards there that I'm aware of. There will be no security that I'm aware of. And I mean, look, it's probably meant in good faith, but this is nothing to do with Tommy's official team. It's nothing to do with the United Kingdom movement. And the message is, for Tommy's sake, please do not attend that demo. Very important that I got that one out of the way. Let's have a little look. What is next? Okay, so this is next, guys, right? So we've had a little bit of a well, let's just get it up on screen. An Egyptian NHS doctor. We spoke about the NHS and its infiltration of Hamas supporters. An Egyptian NHS doctor who mocked Israel festival goers fleeing Hamas gunmen wins a legal fight to stay in the UK after a judge rules the Home Secretary was wrong to ban her from Britain. Here she is, delightful looking soul. So this woman has mocked the deaths and the people running away from the Hamas gunmen. She did that online, and her prize, her punishment was to be granted leave to stay in Britain, while Lucy Connolly was sent to jail. And yeah, I mean, apparently, well, you can get into trouble now for saying two-tier, Danny. We could have the police knocking at the door. What do you make of that one, Howard?
Well, it makes me, I get a lump in my throat when I see these sorts of decisions being made. We saw the other day, didn't we? Someone, couldn't eat chicken nuggets or something, or, he wasn't going to be, he could stay.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember, but we keep hearing the same thing, that these people, it's affecting their human rights and all this sort of crap. And I'm sorry.
Human rights?
Exactly. Well said, Danny. That's I generally get quite emotional about these decisions made. And she's also an intelligent person. She's a doctor.
Yeah.
And I guess you'd think, 7 years of training to become a doctor, she would actually learn something about humanity and all of the things going on. So to applaud the deaths or people running away from being killed, you cannot. I'm speechless.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Dave Lilly, somewhere between Reform and UKIP is the Goldilocks zone. Thank you, Dave. Talking about UKIP, I'll tell you what, before we go on to the next subject, Keir Starmer's meeting Donald Trump this week. I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest. I was hoping that Donald Trump would have just said, on your bike, son, you're not welcome. But, I mean, look, let's look on the bright side. He might lock him up when he's out there.
Yeah, just arrest him and say, you don't go home until Tommy's free.
Yeah.
I mean, look, what's the best we can hope for? Look, I think Trump's a polite man.
The best we can hope for is they put him in one of Elon's space rockets and send him up to Mars. That is a joke, by the way.
In an orange jumpsuit. No, but seriously, I think Trump will remain polite. But what do you? We'll go through the panel quite quickly on this one. Richard, what do you think that Trump's message to Starmer will be? Not what it should be. What do you think it will be?
Man, I think it'll be stay out of Ukraine policy. Leave it to me. That's pretty much what he's going to be saying to him. He's not going to be letting Keir Starmer grandstand. That's for sure. And if Keir Starmer does grandstand, his government are going to be in big trouble.
I don't think he'll have the bowl for that. Danny, what do you think that the Don's message to Starmer will be?
I do think there'll be some sort of threat of taxes, trade taxes, if he doesn't get in line. I do think he'll put that on him possibly and turn around and say, listen, you've got to start coming round to, the real world. Look, who knows what he's going to say?
I think he'll tell him to get a new voice coach personally, but Howard, what do you think he'll tell him?
Well, I think the Ukraine thing, which what Richard said, is right. But also, I think the JD Vance telling us about freedom of speech and we're letting in immigrants in over here. What are we doing this from? It's only 30 or 40 days he's been in power, and already, the immigration's virtually gone down to zero, apparently, in the States. why are we doing it over here? I mean, I understand Germany and France has shouted at Starmer saying, stop talking about putting troops in the Ukraine for peacekeeping. You shouldn't be talking about this whatsoever. I mean, he's got no idea. And I think you're going to see Starmer sitting down with him privately and saying, you're a pillock. So can you can start recognising the fact is you've got to look after, your borders, you've got to cut your taxes and, above all, to let people think for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda Richardson, thank you, Amanda. You can message more, please, taking no action, Dan. Carl McRae, the UK isn't the same anymore. We should fight the government instead of fighting each other. Yeah. Dorothy, is there an update on Tommy L. Lionheart? I can't really say there is much of an update. Really, can you? No. Not a great deal.
Only the thing, certain people of his family weren't allowed to see him. We understand, and his diet's been affected and all that sort of thing, but he's not in a good way, apparently.
Yeah. David Crosby, UB40, Labour of Love, reprise Labour of Hate 2025. Good one. Mark W, good to see Richard looking so well. Let's not forget Danny's recent loss, though. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Jack Wobbly, it's a way of getting info off Tommy's phone. It's come to my attention that...
well, he's got his phone back, hasn't he, Tommy? He's got his phone back. In fact, he hasn't even got that phone anymore, so I understand. But they'd have to have the phone, I'm pretty sure, to access...
You're talking about the one that he took off him, yeah.
Yeah, mate, I don't know. Maybe they can just do it via your iCloud now. I don't know. I don't know how that goes, whether you need the phone or whether you need the cloud.
I want to bring to your attention a couple of videos that surfaced overnight on X. One's involving UKIP leader Nick Tanconi. But before I show you that, just very quickly, with everything that's going on in the world and in this country, we had to put up with this earlier on.
If we don't show a path to the future, others will fill that void. In fact, they already are. A dangerous right-wing politics, even here in Scotland, that will say they are the ones who can tilt politics towards the interests of working people, even as their proposals do precisely the opposite. A politics which feeds off the failure of the free market, the failure of public services to reform, and above all, the failure to control borders properly. We have to be ready for this test.
So he's clearly talking about reform there. He's worrying about the far right, the right again. I mean, look, would it not be an idea for him to worry about things like this?
Say it loud, say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Are any of them that are at that march putting any of these people up in their house?
Well, of course they're not, Danny. But this is where I'm gonna not lose me rag a little bit. But let me tell you something, right? When I see British people, those people are white British. Let's get it right. That scum, that vile scum that's tearing our flag in half, right? Our grandfathers, our forefathers fought and died for that flag. And some of you may not know this. Richard certainly will be aware of it. But going back over the years, the most important thing on the battlefield was the colours. You save the colours at all costs. It's time to save the colours. Watching that flag being torn in half like that and trampled on almost puts me in tears, because that flag stands for everything that we hold dear to us. And for the police to arrest people for burning the Quran, yet stand by and watch those lefty twats tear that in half, using, by the way, a sharp implement, and letting them get away with it, is just mind-boggling. So let's get it right. You can tear the Union Jack up and stamp on it, and have a bladed weapon in your possession in a public place, and slit that flag in half and then trample on it. But if you burn the Quran, you're going to prison.
I mean, it's two-tier again, Paul. I mean, you know, when I watched, there's a 19-minute video by Urban Pictures which covers all of the policing of that event, and that was a perfectly legitimate event. That wasn't an illegal demonstration that UKIP were doing. You know, UKIP are a legitimate political party. Nick was leading an event in Manchester. It wasn't massive. You know, they were very peaceful and respectful, the UKIP side, and you know the amount of abuse they got from those dogs, you know, and you know, again, little liberal lefty, you know, kids masked up, all looking for violence, all looking for a fight, and you know, against middle-aged people predominantly.
Well, let's I tell you what, it's very brief. It's what is it? It's 14 seconds long. Let's watch it again and look at the reaction of some of the people around. This is an insult to our veterans and everyone that has fought and died for this country. It makes my blood boil. It makes my blood boil.
I mean, and there were some Muslims there as well. Actually, if you saw that,
there was
hijabi. And I think the thing is, Paul, it should be a criminal offence.
It should be
to attack the nation's flag. You know.
Now let's get it clear here as well. I mean, look, one or two people have said overnight that, you know, Nick and the UKIP lads, you know, perhaps they went into the wrong area. I don't believe they did go into the wrong area. That's what started this off. Let's have a little look.
And we're branded far right. We're branded far right. What
I mean, that is. I think what we've got to realise is, Paul, that is an attack on a perfectly legitimate political event, right? That's a violent attack on that. Now, thankfully, the people who were violently attacking it didn't really know how to violently attack anything. But I thought the policing was appalling. I watched that whole thing. The police didn't keep the two sides apart. Let get far too close. And the reality is, it's from what I've seen, the ones on the UKIP side showed massive restraint. Nobody reacted.
Absolutely.
They might have pushed them back a bit, but you're quite within. When someone's in your face, you're legally within your rights to do that, as long as you use a minimum force. So I think the way the police handled it was appalling. And here's the thing about that, Paul. Right now, imagine if that had been 500 of those Muslim Defence League thugs that run about in that area in the northwest. That could have been an absolute bloodbath. There could have been people very, very seriously injured, and that's what really concerns me. People were put in danger there yesterday, without a shadow of a doubt.
Thankfully, it wasn't. What it was
always
mostly
masked up as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly university student types, all covering their faces. But I'll go back to what I said earlier on, that you cannot debate with the left. They have no notion of compromise. They have no willingness to talk over any differences. Now, the question is, Howard, right, going down the line, over the years, the political left has shown us no respect whatsoever. None. Not a single ounce of respect. Now, if and when Reform win the next general election, I believe that there should be none shown in return. And we should come down on these people with a very heavy hand. When power has been won back, these people need a lesson. I'm not saying they need a lesson in politics. That's their free will to be whatever. But what they do need is a lesson in bloody manners.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said earlier on, and I've got huge respect for what that sentence was. They're incapable of debate. They're absolutely incapable of actually sitting down. I've been doing this for 15 years, working on behalf of trying to keep tax low for the motorists, as you know, in terms of filling up the tank. And I'm vilified, I'm spat upon by, guess who? The Greens. the left people like that. And I always say to them, this whole thing about net zero, for example, when I ask a question to people, it was actually in Whitehall for the Greens were there, they and some of the people, Stop Oil people, were gluing themselves to the floor around Parliament Square. And I just went up to one of them. I said, just out of curiosity, can you tell us how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere? And they said, well, there's lots of it. We got lots of problems. I said, well, no, tell me. And I said, there's 0.04%. And they went, no, there is. There's more than. I said, no, they don't know their facts. That's why they can't debate. And that's what the right must. And that's what I've always said to Nigel, and I've said to all the people who ever campaign, don't piss off the people that you want on your side. Just be objective with objective factual data. And those people you saw, and those people ripping the flag up were two women, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think, they look like it. Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day.
Well, I hope their parents or their brothers and sisters are watching them, and how embarrassed they are about those people. Because we've got. I understand. We know this person went up, to nearly arrest a woman for a hurty tweet. Well, they've got photographs of these people.
Exactly.
Why don't they go and get them and put them in prison?
Exactly. And I'll go back to what I said right at the start of that as well. Remember that flag initially, the tear in it was caused by a bladed sharp item.
Well, that's unbelievable.
Which is an offence in itself.
Yeah.
So where are the police acting upon this? I mean, this is where. I mean, look, the guy that messaged me earlier on is a dear friend, love him to bits, serving police officer, ultimate respect for him. But what all of these guys have got to understand, can they not see the two-tier system that we're now living under? You can pull out a bladed article from your pocket, slit that Union Jack in half, tear it up, and there's no recourse. Now, okay, their argument might be that they'll get a knock on the door next week, but they won't. And I'll tell you why they won't, because you can't identify the bastards. They've all got their faces covered.
Yes.
And Paul, let's get it right. Let's go back 2 weeks to the 1st of February. And the senior police officer that was on the ground on that Saturday very nearly caused a riot without been interceding and sticking it on him, basically, when he was going to start arresting football fans for standing on the wrong side of the road because of the conditions that they put on it. And he was going to do it. One of his junior officers came to me and said, Richard, you need to speak to him because they're going to start nicking those guys over there. Well, he said, you need to move them. So that's what we had on our perfectly legal, peaceful event. And it would have caused a riot because, if they'd have gone and steamed into those lads, and luckily when he realised there were cameras on him and we were filming him and saying, listen, if you do this, you're going to lose your job. He backed down and the arrests weren't made. But that's how finely balanced all this is. And of course, can you imagine the headlines, Paul? Tommy Robinson protests, descends into violence before the march even sets off. And I believe that's what that officer wanted. So there are police officers. So no disrespect to your friend. I used to have, I worked with the police in Northern Ireland when I was in the military. I have maximum respect for what the RUC did during the Troubles. But what I've seen in British policing in the past 8 years since I've been doing this activism has given me a complete new set of eyes on the police. And there's many police officers I respect and get on well with that I've worked with when we've been doing these demonstrations and they've been absolutely 100%. But there's others that are total wrong-uns. And that's just a fact.
Yeah, I think for me, the truth of the matter is, usually somewhere in the middle. I think that there are a lot of police officers out there that are not doing their job properly, but also we're not privileged to see what they see on a day-to-day basis, and therefore the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. But I will defend what you said 100% in the respect that what I've witnessed at some of the demos, and certainly when they allowed those two guys to walk past waving the Palestinian flag, doing the Hamas salute in July, that was absolutely outrageous. And probably the worst, most dangerous piece of policing that I've seen I can't think of one. I'd have to go right the way back to Hillsborough. To think of a worse piece of policing than what I saw that day. Divergent Party, thank you very much. A new party with Howard, Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib is the way forwards. Thank you guys for this fantastic channel. Looking forward to the garden. Thank you very much. Mystic Turtles, 6 cars to Tommy in 6 weeks by Moonpig O delivered. Hopefully it'll have gone.
0.
Well, can they get cards delivered, or does it all have to go through the email prisoner system? I think it's all got to go through email prisoner, hasn't it?
Don't know. Thanks, Stephen. Laurie, thank you. No way we have 4 years if it's like this after 8 months.
I agree.
I think, going back to what Howard said earlier on, I think that there's a chance that, was it Howard or was it Richard? One of you said that it'd be like Turkey's vote for Christmas. It won't be a vote of no confidence.
Howard.
The only thing I would say to that, Howard, is that, look, once these loser lefty Labour chancellors realise that they are going to get their asses well and truly whooped to the next general election, will there come a time when they think, you know what, our grift is going to be over unless we get rid of this guy?
Well, if they had principles, you're absolutely right. They would do that. But they won't do that because they got 4 years at £90,000 a year, expenses, all the other things. And the longer they're in this for 4 years, they get a absolutely massive pension. I mean, there's all sorts of things, plus the kudos of a job afterwards. They just fall into, like, non-executive director jobs and, NGO jobs and all those sorts of things. That's the issue. And to be fair to Labour, they've got a massive majority. Why would they? Why would they?
David Crosby, thank you, mate. Trump message to Starmer, mind your own zippy. Claire Bear, the wonderful Claire Bear, member for 8 months. 5 guys now using halal meat in their branches. Yep, won't be eating there anymore.
No more 5 guys.
Starmer, zippy is Arabic is zuppy. Sean, cheers, Sean. Please stop showing Starmer's face. It makes me want to stop watching. Love you. Love the 4 of you. Great show. Stephen, thank you, Stephen. A woman got 22-month prison sentence for throwing a beer can at police. An Asian man got a 20-month suspended sentence for throwing a brick at police.
Yeah.
It goes on.
Goes on. The Grim Reaper. I was told if I did not take my flag down, they was going to kick me out of my home. It's still up. My home flag. Brilliant. Ernie Porton, my dad fought for that flag and those people live. My dad fought for that flag and those people to live their lives in peace. Thank you, Ernie. Exactly. Dave Young, Paul, I'm not sure the megaphone is a good look. I get that. Yeah, I get that. Lee Dole, did Mohammed Hoblos get into the UK? He should be locked up on a terrorism charge. I've got a funny feeling he didn't, Richard. Do you know if he did or didn't?
Do you know what? I've lost track of that one. There was it was being discussed whether they were going to let him in or not, wasn't it?
Kenny Milsom, for the left that supposedly advocate for peace, they always support acts of aggression. It's always the same. Vinnie King, Richard, you and I signed up to protect that flag. This won't end well. Why do we stand by and let this happen?
Totally agree.
Every kettle has a boiling point. I'm afraid it does. Asterix, Paul, the police had to deal with the tragic death of a 3-year-old child caused by a tram and a white van. The police seem unorganised, but they did protect us. Guys, no more supers tonight. Thank you very much, because we are coming up to our last subject tonight. And it's quite a difficult one, actually. A gentleman called Amjad Tahar. I'm going to play you a little clip of a gentleman called Amjad Tahar, who I think explains this very well indeed. Be interested to hear what the audience and what you guys have to think of this. It's a couple of minutes clip, but I think it's very informative. And what it tells me is that my experience of people from the Middle East over the years, from the Lebanon, from Syria, the people that I've met and done business with, they've been great people. They're businessmen. they're kind, they're caring. We've imported too many of the wrong type of people. And this gentleman is saying exactly the same thing.
I've listened to some of the comments you've made. Why is it that you believe there are more radical Islamists in a place like Britain than there is in your own country?
The question is, why is it that when a Muslim lives in Dubai, he's more liberal, but when a Muslim lives in London, he's more extremist? Why is it that you have the fact that if an Orthodox Jew, after the 7th of October, still wanted to walk in the street of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, anywhere in the UAE after the 7th of October, he actually identified himself as a Jew and wears his kippah or Orthodox identity. Yet he cannot do that in various areas in Birmingham, for example, in Small Heath, in Sparkbrook, in various areas in UK. This should be questioned. It's not a matter of freedom of speech. It's the fact that people in Britain have reached a moment where they cannot express their perspective, their opinion at any stage, at any point, in the name of the fact that they censor them under the umbrella of Islamophobia. But that terminology has been used to prevent any person speaking about the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood are the armed forces. The armed forces of Muslim Brotherhood is Hamas. And we saw what Hamas carried in terms of terrorism and so on. So yes, if all the way in Gaza, the humanity still has some hostages there, all the way in London, you have various generation, a new generation who are hostages of that propaganda, of Hamas propaganda, the Muslim Brotherhood's propaganda. It's quite dangerous. It's and devastating, and it's quite a dark time. I mean, to the point when you speak to a British person at this stage, at this point, they always look at yesterday and they don't tell you about tomorrow. They're scared of tomorrow. When they want to look into the light, they look at yesterday, not today. And this is a Britain where Britain message was always tomorrow.
Yes.
Well said.
Now, I thought that was a magnificent piece, and I'll tell you why, because it's coming from a Muslim gentleman that clearly understands the situation. And I thought the most pertinent part at the end there, really, the most hard-hitting part, was when he said British people now look back instead of forward. And I think we do. I think we all spend more time now
The good old days.
looking back at the
old days, Paul.
past than looking ahead to the future. And when we think about the future in our country now, instead of looking at the future with anticipation and with hope, we look at it in fear for our children. Richard,
Why
what
is
do
that, Paul?
Well,
Why is
yeah.
that, Paul?
I wonder.
Can I just suggest that everybody reads two books? One's quite an old book by Melanie Phillips called Lundunistan, which was published, I think, early 2000s, and went into the history of how Muslims and mosques in London got radicalized, and how the Muslim Brotherhood, Jamaat-e-Islami, and all the real nasty extremist groups got a foothold, were allowed to operate, and basically the unwritten agreement between the security services and these groups was, if you don't attack us here, we'll not mess about with your operations. As long as you're not carrying out terrorist attacks here, you can organize and do whatever you want in the Middle East from here, but just don't do it here. And it's a great book. It's a long time since I've read it. And then the other book is Among the Mosques by Ed Hussein, who's a Muslim, and that's a book that was I think written in 2019 or 2020. It's a very, very recent book, and it's him that goes into the radicalization in mosques in the UK. He talks about the Deobandi, the Salafi, the extremist, the hard extremist groups up in West Yorkshire, the radicalization in Manchester and London, and Birmingham as well. So we've a massive problem with radicalization.
And here's the thing, Richard, right? Again, I get tired of saying this, but this is not an attack on Muslim people. This is what I said earlier on about the left never listening. If they don't listen to these concerns, we're heading for bloody hell.
they just need to look at the facts. I mean,
it's in everyone's equal interest that we get this mess sorted out.
Absolutely,
everyone's interest. Danny, Danny, what did you make of what that gentleman had to say? You agree?
I watched it. I've seen it already, Paul. Before.
Yeah, it's very good, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, fantastic speech. Yeah, and he's hit the nail on the head, hasn't he?
Yes, and it's good when someone like that speaks out, because it saves us from doing it. Because look, the way I look at it like this, Howard, right? All rational people should have similar views. If you're rational, you should be against extremism from whichever angle it comes at you from.
Well, that's the point, you see, and he's articulate, and it was very telling when he was making the point that in this country that that we're irrational. Whereas, you can walk down Dubai High Street, Abu Dhabi, all the other bits in the UAE, and you can be a Jew, you can be anything you want, and you've got no problem, and you don't feel threatened. But as he says, if you're a Jew and you walk through some of the parts of Birmingham and some of the parts of it where it's dominated by the Muslims, they feel scared. And I have to say to you that I feel scared walking through London at 2:00 in the night now, or when you're walking on your own. And I'm not.
Blimey,
I'm not blaming that on Muslims. I'm just blaming on the fact is there's no police about.
No, exactly.
Look, the reality is, and this is why I get really annoyed with all this. The reality is, we've got to look at the facts. Look at the Henry Jackson Society commissioned study that was published last year. And this was a massive. If you actually look at the way the question was answered, it could be 75%, but the figure was quoted: 32% of people actually wanted Sharia law. It was when the question was asked how many people don't want Sharia law within the Muslim community, it was 25%. So it's anything between 32% and 75%. Totally liberal attitudes. And that's so this isn't like a little minority. Let's get away from this fairy tale. Oh, it's only a little minority. Even if it's only 32%. In London, when polling was done in London about 5 years before, that was 45% of Muslims in London wanted Sharia law. Right? So this is not a small minority. This is a lot of people in our country want a completely different legal system to what we're operating, a completely different religion for the country. This is the biggest problem that our country's facing. End of. There's nothing bigger than what's happening with the Islamisation in the UK. And now under Starmer, me saying this if he gets his way and gets an Islamophobia law on the books, we won't even be able to discuss this.
Yeah,
that's how serious.
Yeah, we wouldn't even be able to have this stream tonight. Nancy, thank you so much.
One of the kindest men when my mother died was Shohab, the Muslim guy from Wales. He sent me so many texts saying, "Oh, I'm praying for you, mother. I'm praying for you, brother." So it's not an attack on individual Muslims, but the reality is there are a lot. What we've got to understand is there is a far bigger problem with radicalization in the Islamic community.
What we want, certainly what I want, is to avoid problems, and the way you avoid problems is by facing them and talking about them, not by shying away from them. Nancy, thank you. These bastards have been given free rein, and it needs to end. The people are being abused by them and the establishment. This cannot continue. The people will revolt. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Chris. Why don't you British call them what they are? Marxist shock troops. Love from Canada. That is indeed what they are. Amanda's a new member. Thank you. MZ. Anyone see the Billy Moore vlog? I haven't. Have you, Richard, seen that one?
No, I don't know what that is.
No. Difficult culture, difficult. Helped Howard in the campaign in Ashley, and I can sit back. It's itching me. How can I help any of you? I love our country too much to watch it burn. Looks like someone that's helped you in the past there, Chris. Cheers, Chris. The lovely Claire Bear. Thanks for modding again tonight, Claire, and the other guys modding. Burning or defacing the Union flag is not a specific offence. However, such actions could be seen as a public order offence under Section 5 of the Public Order Act of 1986. Arson of flags should be under the Criminal Damage Act. Well, look, Claire, I'm sure you're absolutely right, but they won't say a bloody word. You know they won't. Stephen Boyce, Paul, can you please post the text from the government UK petition? I would like to copy it and knock on doors. Unfortunately, I've deleted it from the archive on my live streams, so I can't put it up at the moment. Last super chat for the night. Dave Young, thank you, mate. Paul, I understand that you can't say everything you know about Mr. T, but we do need some kind of update from his team. What's his team doing? Well, I can tell you this. They're working very, very, very hard, 24 hours a day almost. Richard and Danny can verify that. And basically, we're waiting for legal updates. Let's just say I'm hoping there might be some news this week, but who knows? But as soon as we know, you'll know. That's for sure. Brilliant show tonight, guys. I've really enjoyed it. Danny, I know it's a little bit misty out there at the moment, isn't it, in Spain?
Only yesterday we had a day of rain, which is nice because I don't have to turn the plant water on. And but it's been lovely today. It was misty to start with, but
I've got to say, Danny, for someone
11 o'clock we got blue skies.
Danny, I think I've got a slightly better colour than you.
Yeah, yours is high blood pressure though. Mine's just a tan, which I can never sunbathe because I'm always doing stuff.
I never had high blood pressure until I met Richard.
None of us had high blood pressure until we met Richard.
How do you think I feel, boys?
And then all of a sudden it's gone through the roof. But luckily enough, Howard brings me blood pressure back down a little bit, so it's nice to have him on the show.
Can I just ask one request of your?
You can do whatever you like. You can even sing a song if you like. I don't mind.
I wouldn't inflict that on anyone, though. I've just launched a public opinion poll, which I normally get 60,000 responses very quickly in a matter of a week, and it's mainly about net zero and the anti-car policies of this government that they're going to inflict on us. But there is a political section, and I asked some questions about Tommy. And I would very much like to get that. Now, the results of this will go to the media, and they will go to every single MP. So it's worth people doing it. It's at fairfueluk.com.
Let me just pull that up. Hold on a second. So it's what is it? www.fairfueluk.com. All one word. Fairfueluk.com. fairfueluk.com. Right, I've just put it in the chat there as well.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm on it.
And you'll see. Please take that. Perfect. Yeah.
So, guys, as soon as the show's finished, there's nearly 5,000 people watching across all of our platforms. Please don't forget to hit that up vote. Let me just see how many I've got, because you always help me out right at the very last minute. We have 1,700 upvotes. Come on, guys, you can get me to 3,000 upvotes. Come on, quick, before we go. Debbie says, love to you all. Thank you, Debbie. There's been so many messages tonight. Robert says, UKIP all the way. Let's have a little look. Yeah, thousands of regular messages. Thank you so much for all the comments tonight. I really appreciate them. This is the last super of the night. Rosemary Halls. Neil Sean's daily news today is about the King demanding answers from Keir Starmer about his government. He's usually on the ball with the Rolls info. Very interesting. Richard, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's great to see you having a shave. You were starting to look a little bit like, you know.
Well, I might get a bath. Might get a bath next.
Is it that time of year already?
If I'm lucky.
Danny, always a pleasure to see your smiling face. Howard, absolute honour to have you on board.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, you're all fabulous, and not quite as fabulous, though, as all the viewers. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back soon. As always, take care of yourselves. Have a lovely, lovely week. Be careful. Keep your chins up. And most of all, look after those beautiful children. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.